It's been a popular pastime for a lot of people to try and figure out what exactly is going on with the games industry the last few years, as seemingly the near entirety of it has committed to a series of choices and actions that to any layperson appears to be doing nothing more than hurtling it yet further rapidly towards the abyss. And now that we've finally found ourselves at the precipice of aforementioned abyss, everyone is kind of looking around confused. How did we get here? Was there no plan? Turns out that no, there wasn't any plan whatsoever. Okay, there's a couple of very fascinating things that came out just the other day or so. So, Baldur's Gate 3 developer uses award show win to address state of the industry. Everything's really terrible right now, everybody's getting fired, yada yada yada. What does this have to do with anything? Well, in part, this begins to kind of hint at what actually happened here, right? So, they talk about this. I want you all to know that you are all talented and that you matter and that you are the future of the industry. Don't let that flame be extinguished by our collective mistakes. I know everyone here is scared because YouTube doesn't allow me to say words anymore. But okay. Interesting. You are all very talented, collective mistakes. Well, see, here's the thing. I'm not sure this is actually true at all. In fact, I believe this is actually the exact opposite of the truth. See, in part, the current state of the games industry and its rapidly encroaching collapse can be explained via political means, like, for example, the fact that we have focused more on the racialization of video gaming rather than the creation of, actual video games, for example. But even more so, it has to do with the pampered nature of video game creation. The fact that seemingly everyone thinks that there should be a place for them, that they have a right for a job somewhere, somehow, doing something within the games industry. And as it was booming and growing ever larger, it seemed as if everyone did have that right. This led to both the politicization of video games and the drastic drop in actual quality of creating video games, because the people making them didn't have the skill sets or the correct mindset anymore to make video games. Crucially, a lot of them simply were not video gamers. As you move on a little bit here, the secret to Larian's success, right? Okay, David Wolger took the mic, stating others probably want to know what the secret to the studio's success is. The secret. What is the secret ingredients? What is it that makes Baldur's Gate 3 a good game? How did you manage to earn money when nobody else is managing to? And the answer, I started thinking the secret to our success comes from asking ourselves, what does the player want? What do I think is best for the game? What is the most fun and the most crazy? In other words, the secret to Larian's success is making a product that people want to buy. How did we arrive here? Well, we know now, I guess, but Jesus. Okay, and hey, this could just be waffling, right? This could just be him going like, I don't want to tell them a real secret, so I'm going to tell them something dumb sounding that they all got to go like, well, duh. But actually, no, this apparently was a bit of an epiphany moment for quite a lot of people, as there's also this here. This is an article talking about investment into video gaming, where the investors are claiming that we're still putting money into it. There is still interest in video gaming. There is just that there needs to be so much money now, the return is so small. And one of the interesting comments is, for now, people need to focus on business essentials, which is, can you make more money than you can spend? Years and years and years of absolute, unequivocal infantilization of, well, not just the games industry, but our society in general, has led to entire generations of people who don't believe that there is any necessity in getting good at their jobs, who don't need to understand their jobs, who simply views having gainful employment as some sort of automatic right or privilege they are bestowed upon from up on high. And this is how you can see also the employees themselves thinking about it. There's been cuts in Activision Blizzard recently, for example, enormous cuts, which are hardly surprising, seeing as they are now being merged with a much larger company like Microsoft, for example, which is obviously going to have a lot of overlap in many areas that doesn't actually require that many people. You know, infrastructure things or community management, etc., where Microsoft already has people or would prefer to hire internally to carry out these tasks. Thus, Blizzard, being obviously the junior party in the merger, is the one most likely to take the majority of the cuts, and that is exactly what is happening. And this is just the latest wave of cuts, as they have cut, I think something like, what was it? Let me measure. 1,900 jobs so far. And yet, listen to this. Companies should not be allowed to waltz into this country, announce life-changing cutbacks to people's jobs, and simply refuse to talk to representatives chosen by the people who have given long years of service to their employer. No, that is exactly what the company can do, because the company is a private entity. It actually doesn't need to listen to you at all. Now, you have rights and privileges awarded to you by the laws of whatever nation you live in, obviously. You have your... because you can't just fire people either, you need an actual reason. But the reason can simply be, well, we don't need this position anymore. It'll lose us money to maintain it. And yet the employee position is, you can't just do that. You can't just, announce life-changing cutbacks like this. What are we gonna do? Shrug. Again, the companies need to make money first, and people just aren't that talented anymore. See, this is exactly the thing as well. The industry is banned showing developers what they're worth. You're all very talented, etc. This is nonsense. This is actual unequivocal nonsense. The vast majority of games developers today are objectively, observably worse than the game developers of yesteryears. Games are being developed with more and more pre-made tools than ever. More and more of the job is actually being done for you by the goddamn engine than ever, and yet games are still buggy. Games still release broken. Games still release with downgraded graphics, or less functionality, less mechanics. I mean, a lot of my audience here are Total War gamers. Total War has been going downhill for a very long time now, primarily in terms of mechanics. We had more mechanics in Medieval 2 than we do in a modern-day Total War game. Like, Pharaoh received a massive backlash because it was a pared-down, simplified version even of Troy Total War, which was intended to be a kind of a mini standalone title in its own right. I mean, we are receiving full-fledged products, supposedly, that are lesser versions of DLC. Again, I bring up Total War Kingdoms every time, because Kingdoms was probably the single best expansion pack in the history of video gaming, and it contained so much more content than an entire Total War video game does today. And that's, of course, again, just Total War. We see this in virtually every single genre. We see it with, hell, to take the example of Cyberpunk, a big one, right? It finally released one piece of DLC content and then killed it because it wasn't a big enough financial success. That one piece of DLC content was probably more interesting than the base game. How do you manage this? The expansion packs and DLC used to be additive, they used to be extras, they used to be supplementary, and they certainly couldn't outcompete the base game. The only real explanation is that the base game these days is so much lesser than what we used to receive. I mean, even Baldur's Gate has this problem to a certain extent, where the first act is great, the second act is serviceable, and the third act is starting to get pretty gosh darn meh. As if you're taking a time travel, English, through the development history of Larian. You begin with the earlier stages, where people with a lot more talent were making it, and then you move through it until the game seems to lose a lot of its charm. It'll be very interesting to see what Larian's next product will do, if it will be good, or whether or not the dilution of the talent at the company will actually have reached such a stage as to undermine it. It's also why one of the main reasons why the primary innovations today come not from AAA, but from indie titles. In terms of storytelling, in terms of gameplay and mechanics. Hell, I'm pretty sure that with AI becoming more and more powerful, we're probably within 5-6 years of seeing graphics development being handed over to indie studios as well. Hell, graphics, goddammit. It used to be that better graphics was like the one room of innovation, right? Where the companies could always come up with something else and they focused too much on it. The critique was that they were focusing for graphics over mechanics. Now, we're not even focusing on that. In fact, the graphics in games has gone backwards severely. And even like the most graphically intensive games like, again, Cyberpunk, is impressive, but also not really necessarily a giant leap forward. We're not experiencing any revolutions anymore. Like, we've been not even just stuck in an era of iteration, we've been completely muddied in it, and not because there isn't any more room for it. No, God, no. Again, with all of the tools pre-made now, you have more time than ever to create new and interesting things, to experiment, to push borders, but rather because the people who are there right now don't have the talent to do so. And this goes for every level, including the base programmers, the animators, the game designers themselves, and the business managers. Because if this needs to be stated, if, hey, we just made the game that people would like to play needs to be stated, then the entire industry is probably ready for a good old-fashioned cut and burn. And hopefully some sort of phoenix will rise from the ashes. There should be plenty of shit to nourish it after all. The video game industry deserves a crash, and a big one, and it'll probably benefit it in the long run. Let's hope we're so lucky, eh? Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.